Hi, I'm Shan Wu with a undercolor of law analysis of the Abrego Garcia case. This is where the Maryland father was kicked out of the country. I'm using the word kicked out because we're going to actually talk about what verb we should be using for this, or what noun even, to describe what happened. So there was a hearing and a federal judge found that this was an illegal action that had happened. And there's a lot of discrepancies, shall we call it, between what the White House is saying, what the Department of Justice is saying. But despite the fact that the judge said that this was illegal, they needed to correct it. They've ordered that he be returned by Monday, despite the fact that the Justice Department attorney conceded that this was a mistake, that he had been sent out of the country. Here's what the White House had to say. We'll take a listen to Carolyn Levitt talk to you on the other side.
The administration maintains the position that this individual who was deported to El Salvador and will not be returning to our country was a member of the brutal and vicious MS-13 gang. That is fact number one. Fact number two, we also have credible intelligence proving that this individual was involved in human trafficking. And fact number three, this individual was a member, actually a leader, of the brutal MS-13 gang.
So all these facts that she is asserting are just assertions. She has no facts to back them up. She hasn't said anything about what their supposed credible intelligence is. And in court, where it counts, the Justice Department couldn't come up with anything either. So let's just do a little bit of background on the facts. Mr. Garcia had fled El Salvador, where he's now been sent back to, as a teenager to escape gang violence. And way back when, he was once pulled over and arrested in the U.S. because there had been a confidential informant claiming he was part of a gang. After actual court hearings about that, there was no evidence to that effect that the judge found credible. And he then sought asylum in the United States because he was worried about being sent back to El Salvador and being in danger. And he was granted that asylum. So the U.S. legal system said that he was in a protected category. He could not be deported. And of course, what happened was he was rounded up and sent out of the country. Now, I'm not even going to call this deportation because this is going to get us into the question of what's actually happening here. I'm going to refer to this as a disappearance because I really think that's what it is. Now, there's going to be a lot of legal debate about it. The Trump regime is going to try and muddy up the issue, but here's what I want to explain it as. Deportation is a legal mechanism for sending people out of the country. That's the deporting. And it takes place as a legal mechanism, meaning there is a process involved, typically before an immigration judge. Another term that comes to mind is rendition. We may have remembered that from the post 9/11 days. They were calling it extraordinary rendition. The U.S. was sending people to other countries where they were held, interrogated in CIA black sites. It's not really a rendition either for a number of reasons, and we'll take a deeper dive in probably later episodes. But it's not a rendition because they aren't taking people who are in U.S. custody as enemy combatants. They're not taking them to U.S. sites. So it's not really a rendition either. Now, in those instances, even though later it was found to be very questionable what the U.S. was doing, there's a lot of transparency. There's a huge amount of debate that went on about it. People knew that the people had been sent off-site, and there was transparency to it. There's zero transparency here. I mean, we don't even know the names of all the people that were sent to El Salvador at this point. So let's take a look at what happened in the hearing. So the federal judge really ripped into the Justice Department here. I mean, she was asking, what exactly is the evidence that says this person shouldn't be in the country or says this person has some sort of improper ties to a gang or anything like that. And the judge said, quote, they certainly have, the United States government, have the functional control to unwind this decision, which was a wrong decision. Now, supposedly, the federal government's already appealed her decision to the U.S. Court of Appeals for the Fourth Circuit. Not unexpected for the Trump regime. But you have to also wonder, what is it that they're appealing here? Well, we get a hint to that because also the White House press secretary suggested that the judge should contact the El Salvadoran president because, quote, we are unaware of the judge having jurisdiction or authority over the country of El Salvador. That's kind of a neat trick, right? You send them off to another country and say, hey, you can't do anything about it. That's obviously wrong, because the United States is who sent this person who had legal protection here to the other country. So a judge has jurisdiction over what the United States is doing and can make the United States do things. So we'll come back to that in a moment. One of the supporters of the family put it as the government tried to disappear Abrego Garcia, and that's very much the term that I think is correct here. During the hearing, the attorney for Mr. Garcia argued that the client's removal, he called it, from the U.S. violated the withholding of removal orders previously ordered by the immigration judge. Absolutely true. He called it a forcible expulsion. I still think it's a disappearance. And that's where the Department of Justice attorney was himself critical of the federal government because he couldn't give any answers. He conceded that the plaintiff, Mr. Garcia, should not have been removed. And when the judge asked him why was he taken into custody, he said, look, you're going to be frustrated, Your Honor. I don't have good answers for you. The judge said there's no warrant for his arrest. There's no statement of probable cause. What is the actual document that got this process started? To which the DOJ attorney said, I do not have that order. It's not in the record. So it's a complete black box. The reason it's a complete black box, the administration wants to say this is all under the fallback rubric of national security. That's the go-to question for authoritarian regimes. We're doing this to protect national security. You can't question it. Now in the US, that particular black box has been given some really good walls by Chief Justice Roberts, who gave Trump and all future presidents complete immunity, remember, for any core presidential functions. Nothing gets more core than being the commander-in-chief. So the Trump folks figure, yeah, we're really going to lean into that, because as long as we keep saying it's national security, no one can touch it. And we want to say that courts can't even review it, much less get the president in trouble for it. Now, Steve Vladeck, one of the really great constitutional scholars, and we'll put up his quote for you here in his post, he has said that, quote, the question isn't whether a federal court can order the Salvadoran government to release Garcia. It can't. It's whether the U.S. government has the ability to secure Garcia's release. If so, then it can be ordered to do so, because then Garcia is in the constructive custody of the United States. That's a very clear way of thinking about it. Vladeck also points out in his posts to an old 2004 case of Omar Abu Ali, in which federal district court Judge Bates ruled that the United States had to bring him back because the plaintiff there, Ali, was claiming that the Saudi government, that's where he was held, was only holding him because the U.S. had asked it to do so. And Bates said, I've got jurisdiction to find out the answer to that. And that's exactly what's going on here. This judge, any court in the U.S., has the jurisdiction to find out what is going on and to correct mistakes. Now, to some extent, this sounds a little bit like a contract enforcement issue, right? That the U.S. entered into a contract with El Salvador. El Salvador gets paid for it. They should return people. That's what it looks like in terms of a kind of legal theory. But it's way beyond that if the Trump administration claims that the judge lacks jurisdiction. Like I said, that's simply a disappearance. There's no legal process to it. So we will keep our eye on this and keep those replies and comments coming. I did want to say, I've noticed I've been having a problem replying sometimes. YouTube seems to strip out my links for it. So if you want to get a hold of me, do go ahead and message me on Blue Sky or even X. I sometimes still check X, I have to admit. And message me there, and we can be in touch that way if there's something you need to reach me about. But very much appreciate all the communication, and we'll try and keep those lines open. Thanks.
In collaboration with the Midas Touch Network, we just launched the Legal AF YouTube channel. Help us build this pro-democracy channel where I'll be curating the top stories at the intersection of law and politics. Go to YouTube now and free subscribe at Legal AF MTN. That's at Legal AF MTN.